Let's go for a dive in the fabulous New Caledonia Lagoon. We're Richard and Freddie Cheshire aboard the Moira. We'll show you what the lagoon coral reefs are like. There are an impressive number of fish. Some, like this giant trevally, are likely to be your dive partner. The clear water, bright corals, and amazing coral reef creatures make every dive a photographer's dream. Let's use the rocket cruising guide to New Caledonia to get us to Ilot Mato in the Great Southern Lagoon. The rocket guide shows exactly how to make the 27 nautical mile trip from Noumea. The drone image shows how to enter Matou's inner lagoon, where to anchor without damaging the coral reefs or your yacht. Matou is an island with its own lagoon within the Great Southern Lagoon. The reefs protect Matou's inner lagoon from winds and waves from any direction, and as a result, we find a wealth of coral species, some very delicate, some very ancient, but all of them really beautiful, creating an ecosystem with a spectacular array of marine creatures. You'll find hundreds of great dive spots, but I'm going to show you some of the best that we've found. Let's start with a look at the reef in the middle of the anchorage. Look at the size of this coral head. The reef itself has all kinds of interesting critters to photograph, but the real reward is meeting one of the oldest massive coral heads in New Caledonia. It's probably well over 1,000 years old. Let's jump to the Fringing reef, only a short distance from the isolated reef. The eastern edge of Ilot Mato's Fringing reef is so shallow, the tops of some corals are exposed on very low tides. It drops off rapidly to 3 or 4 meters, with lush beds of acropora corals and lots of fish, like this school of batfish. Okay, let's go just off the Fringing reef to explore these interesting looking dark patches. They turn out to be very delicate stands of acropora corals on the white sandy bottom. You can see immediately why yachts need to be extremely careful not to drop their anchors on these beautiful corals or allow their anchor chains to destroy them. Many of the marine parks have moorings installed so yachts won't anchor in the seagrass or damage the coral. But while Matou is part of the Great Southern Lagoon Nature Management Area, there are no moorings, so it's up to every boat to be diligent not to damage the corals with their anchor. Next, let's go to the canal-like pass into the inner lagoon. Here's Freddie doing a high five with a friendly giant trevally. It's followed us around so often Freddie nicknamed it Poseidon. We strongly discourage fishing for coral reef fish in tropical waters. Check out the health and the parks section on the rocket guide to find out why you don't want to fish in the lagoon. Now we'll jump to one of the big reefs on the southeastern side of Matou's lagoon. There are lovely reefs everywhere, and all of them are different. You just need to dinghy around the edge looking for bright colored coral patches, then anchor carefully in the sand and explore. If you just float over the reef, the fish start to emerge from the protective corals and go about their business as if you were not even there. If you carry a spear with you, however, you'll think the reefs have no fish at all on them. They're smarter than most people think. Onto the reefs in the southwest side of the lagoon, where we've often seen reef sharks. Normally, reef sharks are curious and will check us out when we show up in their area. We've never seen them in an aggressive mood, but it's wise to be cautious around them. The rocket guide has a section on staying healthy in the tropics that includes important information on dangerous marine animals and how not to get bit by sharks. Here Freddie is wearing a zebra-striped leotard, and this white-tipped shark swam off rapidly when she approached. Okay, on the inner reefs of the eastern Matou Lagoon. We found this leopard shark sound asleep on the edge of the reef between a couple of big coral heads. Leopard sharks are not at all aggressive and actually seem pretty lazy too. When they're very small, they're called zebra sharks because they have stripes, not spots. Over on the east side of the lagoon, there are some very shallow passes with strong tidal currents. Here we find lots of filter-feeding invertebrates, including these feather stars, crinoids, on the top of the coral. Their feather-like arms extend into the current, combing plankton from the incoming tide. These ancient echinoderms walk up to the corals when the tide is flowing and fold up their arms and creep down to hide when they're done feeding. Next, we'll go right outside the lagoon to the outer edge of the reef on the northern side. The acropora thickets here are really lush and healthy. Swarms of blue chromis fish hover over the coral, feeding on planktonic animals. Their droppings are gobbled up by the coral polyps, providing much-needed phosphates and nitrates to feed the photosynthetic zooxanthellae algae living in their tissues. It's a perfect example of symbiosis. Back inside the lagoon, in a very protected shallow area, we find a nursery for small fish in the quiet, calm water. It's really relaxing to snorkel around the coral patches, taking photos, admiring the beauty all around. All these photos and thousands more are on the Rocket Cruising Guide to New Caledonia. There are icons of divers showing exactly where on the reef the photo was taken. Point to the icon, the photo appears. Click on it, it becomes a 360-degree sphere image so you can look all around and see exactly where you want to go snorkeling when you cruise here yourself. Without the Rocket Guide, you'll spend a lot of time and money getting to the anchorages, but will miss finding the very best places to explore, both in the water and on the land. Know where you're going before you even leave for New Caledonia. Download your copy of the Rocket Cruising Guide to New Caledonia on rocketcruisingguides.com. There's a link in the comments below. Do some virtual cruising. Plan your own cruise to the best anchorages, dive spots, and treks. Get your gear ready and come enjoy the New Caledonia World Heritage Lagoon.